This is the ultimate camera test of two of the best value Samsung phone of 2023, Samsung Galaxy S23 Fan Edition versus Samsung Galaxy A54. Who will win? Let's find out. First, let's talk about color profile and saturation on both of these phones are different, totally different, but whatever the scene optimization is respectively, it works. It's those types of comparisons that you see that there's so much difference in terms of colors, but you wouldn't say one is better than the other, and I would tell you why. Of course, the newer Samsung Galaxy S23 Fan Edition is more like the entry-level flagship. I would say a crossover between a mid-range and a flagship phone because of the older processor, but still, it's a flagship chipset. The colors on the images are closer in real life, I should say more saturated, but the colors have gradient. You would see splashes of white and shadows on the images, while Samsung Galaxy A54 will wipe up the colors and blend it with vivid colors that sometimes makes the images or subject unrealistic. Also, the newer S23 Fan Edition is a more neutral tone or white balance compared to Galaxy A54, depending on the scene optimizers if it kicks in, but overall, this phone is more consistent compared to Galaxy A54. Because of the contrast, it gives the image a bit of depth, and generally S23 FE is more saturated than Galaxy A54. While the few months old mid-range Galaxy A54 has its own merit, the images are brighter and better exposed compared to S23 FE, which for most consumers, they will prefer this over darker images on a comparison test. But because A54 tends to brighten up the image every time, sometimes the scene is a little bit washed out compared to S23 FE, and I noticed that in general, it has a warmer white balance compared to S23 FE. The combination of brighter images plus warmer white balance is actually more preferred by consumers because it gives that iPhone kind of look. In terms of specs, both of these phones has 50 megapixel main shooter, but Galaxy S23 FE has a combination of the ultrawide and telephoto that can shoot 8K 24 FPS video and an uninspiring 10 megapixel selfie that takes beautiful selfie shots. While Galaxy A54 is a combination of the gimmicky macro sensor and a typical ultra-wide like any other mid-range phone. This is just to bump up the camera count at the back of the phone. But Samsung has given this phone 32 megapixel selfie that takes detailed selfie portrait. Both front cameras are capable of 4K 30 FPS video. And looking at all sensors from the ultra-wide, wide, and optical and digital zoom of the respective phones, colors are consistent. The only difference is the reach. Samsung Galaxy S23 FE has better reach compared to A54. A little bit of vlogging test. This is the selfie cameras of both phones. This is UHD 60 FPS on Samsung Galaxy S23 Fan Edition, and this is UHD 30 FPS on Samsung Galaxy A54. Let's talk about portrait mode, and there's a consistent behavior I noticed all throughout this comparison. The skin tone is defined by the source of light, so if you're outdoors, you have a lot of sun hitting your face, then Galaxy A54 has a warmer skin tone compared to S23 Fan Edition. Then indoors, if you have a more neutral light hitting the subject, you would see that S23 FE has a warmer skin tone compared to Galaxy A54. Both has exceptional subject separation or cutout, but there's a problem with Galaxy A54. Sometimes if the subject is too far from the phone, it will miss the background blur, and I have a couple of shots with this kind of issue. Also, Galaxy S23 Fan Edition has better contrast on the shadows. It will have deep blacks on the darker shirt and hair compared to Galaxy A54. And the ultimate advantage of S23 is it has 3 focal length from 1x, 2x, and 3x, while you only have 1 focal length on A54, so you need to zoom in and out with your feet. And talking about the selfie camera, although Galaxy A54 has bigger megapixel, 32 megapixel versus 10 megapixel, the image quality on S23 Fan Edition has more details and sharper. The biggest advantage of the flagship S23 FE over the mid-range A54 is the night shot. You would see that in those pitch black condition, S23 FE creates magic and exposes the scene better compared to A54. The mid-range Samsung phone is all black, noisy, and unusable. But if you take the night shot with a little bit of light, let's say outdoors, it performs similar to S23 FE, just a little bit of difference in white balance and maybe a little bit darker compared to the flagship phone. Both of these Samsung phones manages the flaring and highlights really good, and looking at all sensors, you would see that S23 FE exposes the scene better compared to Galaxy A54. This is the resolution test of both phones. This is 8K 24 FPS on Samsung Galaxy S23 Fan Edition, and this is 4K 30 FPS on Galaxy A54. I think the 8K video recording is a little bit gimmicky on S23 FE because on its price point, Samsung should have given this phone 30 FPS. Next, let's talk about flaring, and in all three focal lengths from the ultra-wide, wide, and zoom, Galaxy A54 manages the flaring better, although the 2x of Galaxy A54 is just digital crop. Talking about highlights, if you zoom in on this photo, you would see the Christmas tree at the back. Galaxy S23 FE manages the highlights better. Exposure is also one of the better features of S23 FE, although overall A54 makes the image brighter, but on shadows, you would see more information on S23 FE. In terms of white balance, S23 FE is cooler and Galaxy A54 is warmer. One great thing about the mid-range Galaxy A54 is the dedicated macro sensor that replaces the zoom of the more expensive flagship phones. And we will talk about the zoom on this next comparison. Both phones has ultra-wide and wide, but only S23 FE is a dedicated 3x optical zoom and has farther digital crop compared to A54. Talking about sharpness, the ultra-wide lens of S23 FE is sharper than A54. It's a tie on the main sensor, and obviously because S23 FE is a dedicated optical zoom, and zooming into the photos, S23 FE is sharper. And lastly, the 50 megapixel battle. If you're watching this on a bigger screen, on the upper right corner, there's more details on the mid-range Galaxy A54. So this is the image test of Samsung Galaxy S23 FE and Samsung Galaxy A54. Pretty solid camera for Samsung phones. Now let's do the video test. We're starting this video test with stabilization and using the ultra-wide lens in 4K 30 FPS. I'm shaking the phone like crazy and Samsung Galaxy S23 FE has better stabilization than A54. Using the main sensor, still same settings at 4K 30 FPS. Both phones have good stabilization, but Galaxy A54 sways a little bit more than S23 FE. And lastly, just checking the 3x optical zoom of S23 FE. Galaxy A54 doesn't have a telephoto lens, so if zooming in is your thing, then go with S23 FE. And this is the selfie video recording 4K 30 FPS. I never really liked the output of A54 on selfie video. There's too much over sharpening on my face and the footage is a little bit shaky. Checking the video zoom, Galaxy S23 FE has a better reach and clarity. This is the slow motion test and I like the colors of Samsung Galaxy S23 Fan Edition. Galaxy A54 is a little bit dull. And for super slow motion, S23 FE can record 16 seconds, while A54 can only do 8. Quickly checking the low light video test of these two phones. This is UHD 30 FPS using the rear camera. And this is what you get using both phones. And lastly, low light video recording in 4K 30 FPS. And I like the exposure of Galaxy A54 more compared to S23 Fan Edition. So this is the ultimate camera comparison video of Samsung Galaxy S23 FE versus Samsung Galaxy A54. For someone who's on a tight budget, Galaxy A54 will certainly deliver on the image quality and rear camera videos. I wouldn't expect much on the selfie, but it's pretty good. While the newer Galaxy S23 FE is pricier than A54, but will deliver better image quality and video compared to the mid-range Samsung, overall it's more consistent and will deliver high quality output every time. And there you go, hope you enjoyed this video. I'll continue to compare these two phones in our channel, maybe Pixel 7a and Pixel 8 next, so stay tuned. And as always, thank you guys for watching and I'll see you in the next one.